What is it officially that Trump just pushed through? What has actually changed with this executive order?
On one hand, it draws attention to Title IX protections and appropriately frames male and female in terms of biology. One of the things that we talked about in our first podcast is we were arguing that we needed to analyze trans participation on the grounds of safety, fairness, and inclusion. It abandons that language and said that it needed to, or basically that it opposed male competitive participation on the matters of safety, fairness, dignity, and truth. That statement, I think, is really, really important because inclusion at the expense of the dignity of another is not worth pursuing. And then, the counter argument is, well, what about the dignity of the person that's being excluded? But the problem is, this was never about trans people being excluded, categorically discriminated against. It's the demand for an affirmation of something that is fundamentally subjective. And that's why the statement that it's also as a matter of truth, I think, is very important. And people have become keenly aware of the fact that the subjectivity and the relativity of self-ID doesn't actually account for any concept of truth whatsoever. And the EO, I think, really points at that. And now you also have the reaction to the executive order from folks like the NCAA, which was the most limp noodle capitulation as expected. We've watched the NCAA not protect women, especially through the Leah Thomas scenario. People should go read or listen to the NCAA statements. It still provides all kinds of loopholes for states and schools because it doesn't actually, whereas the executive order very clearly defines sex and deals in terms of male and female, the NCAA still working, it only wants to define gender identity and not sex at all. Their qualifications for how you determine sex, so what the NCAA is pushing now is purely your birth certificate, which is ridiculous when in the US right now, I think it's all but 5 or 6 states, you can change your birth certificate as you please. And Washington just the other day came out and very proudly said that you can have yours changed in as little as 3 days. And then probably most importantly, still retains protections for men to receive benefits in women's spaces and teams. So you still have access to scholarships and funding. You still have access to private spaces that are sex designated, like locker rooms and bathrooms, which was a fundamental part of the issue in the first place.